Hello, and welcome to the first in hopefully a series of many film reflections. I'm trying to be careful not to use the word reviews that I am doing. I am the social solipsist, as you hopefully already know. And as I have mentioned in the video that posted right before this one, film is something that I enjoy very much and don't spend nearly enough time enjoying. Yeah, let's go with that. That's a good way to lead in. So, I'm trying to encourage myself to watch more films and reflect upon them with the care that I want to, instead of just, not watching them. And so the first film that I decided to lead into, well, the first film that I'm going to take a look at is Knives Out. This was not going to be the first film that I was going to do, but I was also not going to do this in August. I was going to do this in April. So, yeah, instead of continuing to stall and not doing the things I intended to do, I figured I might as well just jump in. Now, this is a film that I have been very interested in seeing for quite a while, but the kick in the pants came from my friend Spencer, who once again mentioned that he had watched it and wanted to talk about it. So this is a double whammy as well, because I'll finally get that off me to follow up on that for him. So let's talk about Knives Out. I literally just finished watching it like 20 minutes ago, just to be clear, and that's probably going to be the case for a lot of these films. That's going to be my intention with these reflections, is not to like spend too much time over studying them or anything like that. That may be something that I change in the future. This will evolve upon my own reflections and the reflections of others. So leave your comments and thoughts on this video below. Anyway, so Knives Out. Pretty great film. I really enjoyed it. It was not quite what I was expecting. But in a sense, it was, well, okay. It's not that it wasn't what I was expecting. It's that, of course, all of the advertising that went around it really presented it as a whodunit type of film, in the more classical whodunit style. However, I think if you wrote this off as purely a whodunit, you would be making a mistake. I think this film has a lot more to offer than that, and a lot more care put into a lot of its aspects than calling it a whodunit would suggest. So my tendency would be to just consider this a black comedy. It is... if you don't know what black comedies are, it would take too much time, and it would take a lot to try to explain the ins and outs of what makes a black comedy a black comedy. Suffice to say, well, let me jump back for a second. I can't talk about this film without talking about the writer and director, which is Rian Johnson, who is now famous, or infamous, prior to even making this film, for the Star Wars. What was even the name of the Star Wars film he made? Was it The Last Jedi? It was The Last Jedi, which I have lots of feelings about on its own, but I'm not going to explore them here. Basically, the one sentence summary is, I think it has a lot of great ideas that are presented as a bit of a mess. Anyway, Rian Johnson this is not his second film. This is not his third film. Rian Johnson doesn't have a long and storied history of filmmaking, but he's been around for a while. Prior to Last Jedi, he made Looper, which is a film that I think has some issues, but it's quite good. And not that long after Last Jedi, he made this one, Knives Out. I think he's quite talented, both as a writer and director. And I am curious to see what else he makes. And that's just getting the elephant in the room out of the room. The thing that sets this apart, and also set Looper apart, is that it's a fairly limited budget. I believe this was like $40 million, which in Hollywood standards is a small film. And they do a lot with it. And they know exactly what they can and cannot do with it. And that is always something I really appreciate in any sort of media. When you know what your budget is and you know how much you can accomplish with that, and where you of investing it appropriately is it can make or break a piece of media very easily. So, what did they spend the money on? Well, I won't speculate about specifically what they spent the money on, but let me tell you about what I thought was particularly good. First and foremost, the cast is great. The entire cast is, I don't want to say star-studded. Most of the cast is not like Hollywood elite, but they're very well-known, established actors for the most part. There were very few people in the cast who I hadn't already seen in a number of other films. And the casting is done quite well. It is very easy to cast a bunch of roles for bigger named actors, only with in the belief that the names will get butts in seats, essentially. And I don't think that was the intention here. I'm sure that it was considered, and I'm sure that it helped because this movie was very successful. But the casting was very good. All of the actors play their parts extremely well. It did not bother me that they have a Brit with trying to affect a Tennessee accent, I believe. It works fine. Doesn't bother. It doesn't bother me at all. Not only do they act well, they are visually the right people for the roles that they play. So I guess I should talk about the characters and how those characters are expressed. This is not an incredibly long movie, and as I said, with its sort of moderate budget, they have to do their storytelling carefully. And I think in a large way, they do that extremely well. And that is in no small part due to very good costumes and very good sets. This is a fairly well enclosed, self-enclosed story that more or less only happens at one location. And they use it to great effect. The home that the movie is set in is just bursting with detail. The people who dressed it did an incredible job. And it tells so many little stories on its own. Likewise, the costumes that each of the actors wear and how they reflect, even before you hear them speak or before you know their names, the information that you gain from the costumes is something that's often overlooked, but something that is done, I think, extraordinarily well in this film. Not only the costumes, that also goes to makeup and hair and all these other things. And that of course, leads into the actors themselves and how they play the characters they've been given. And as I said, I think they all do an admirable job of playing the roles that they have. I do want to point out, though, that that does not mean these are all tropified characters. They do this with this being a black comedy. They do sort of lean into a lot of the tropes that are typical of a whodunit or a mystery or something like that. But they both through comedy and satire, they take they put a spin on each of these characters that I think makes them not just, cookie cutter tropes. That is really appreciated. These are characters that are recognizable enough that it gives the storytellers some leeway not to explicitly tell you everything about them because you sort of already know, but also it's a jumping off point for them to build something more detailed. So I think they do a really good job of that. I think the pacing in this movie is generally very good. It's never too breakneck. It's never too slow. It understands what the pacing ought to be for the type of story that they're telling. There are a few plot beats that I feel are sort of an exception to that rule. But on the whole, I think it's done very well. To sort of that same point, I think the cinematography is quite good as well. It's not extraordinary in any way. There are no particular shots that I can say, oh, that's a great shot that the DP got. But with the scope of the movie, that's also not necessarily something that you would expect under these circumstances. That said, it is extremely competent. This is somebody who understands the fundamentals, understands the lighting and the location and framing and where to do different types of focus, to emphasize aspects of the frame, because so much of this has very locked down camera, and they are largely doing shot reverse shot, using that to great effect to frame other elements and to highlight subtle things that are not necessarily explicit but important to the story or to the characters or things like that. That is all done quite well. So I was never blown away, but I appreciated how proficiently what was executed. As far as other specific aspects of the production itself, I don't know that I have anything in particular to say that doesn't end up getting into spoilery territory. And again, I may or may not adhere to that as a rule for this series going forward, but I feel like putting that restriction on myself also forces me to reflect on the film in certain ways to continue talking about it without just saying, I like this plot thing, I didn't like this plot thing. In a meta sense, I think there is a really interesting undercurrent in the film that I think may go underappreciated. There is a substantial, and don't let this put you off, because it's done extremely well. There's a substantial sociopolitical commentary that permeates this entire film that I think is very well done. It's not incredibly probably in the interest of being subtle. It is not incredibly deep. It's not incredibly detailed, but it is omnipresent. And it is you're never whacked over the head with it. It's just, this is an aspect of the story that is being told. In fact, I would arguably say it's the framework for the story as a whole. And if you have watched this film or you haven't watched this film, whether you're watch it again or watch it for the first time, and I don't want to say keep an eye out for that. I think it's fairly evident, but I think it's an important thing to acknowledge explicitly, because it's I'm always a little hesitant when films address what amounts to current events, but this is not going usually my hesitation there comes down to, is this about to age very poorly? And that is not at all the case here, I don't believe. There are some small things that may not be as potent when watched in 20 or 50 years, but will still be relevant. So again, I just want to acknowledge that as an important aspect that may have been missed. Yeah. I'm just scanning my very brief notes real quick to see if there was anything else that I forgot. But I don't think there's really a whole lot else that I want to talk about. This has already gone longer than I anticipated. I was thinking this was going to be under 10 minutes. So here we are. But I guess I put my intro and all that stuff in as well. So anyway, yeah, that's my reflection on Knives Out. I think it's a very worthwhile film to see in whatever manner you can. Yeah. So I've been the Social Solipsist. This is hopefully the first of many videos like this. Please, please, please do put your comments below, whether on this video or on the movie or on what I said about the movie or on the series as a whole, and let me know your thoughts. And I will not get into an argument with you in the comments about your opinions on the movie. That will be another that will be a promise. I will not argue with people about movies in the comments. So anyway, before this goes on too much longer, I've been the Social Solipsist. Thank you for watching. Leave your thoughts, and I will see you guys hopefully next time.